Hello everyone, this is Jyoti Dodia. Welcome to today's IBM PowerVug webinar series session. I'm really pleased to have Hari join us today. He's one of the experts in this field, and today's session is going to be about the IBM Cloud Management Console and Enterprise Pools 2.0. So without further ado, let me hand over to you, Hari.
Thank you, Jyoti. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining in. Thank you for joining this session. I am Hari, and I lead the HMC and CMC development teams, focusing mainly on the architecture and plan roadmap and also the development aspects. Today, I'm going to take you through cloud management consoles and enterprise pools 2.0. We'll start with seeing the details of the platform, a little bit about what the current applications or apps are, a little bit about Enterprise Pools 2.0 as well, a little in detail about Enterprise Pools 2.0, and then I'll also show some demos on some of these apps. So Cloud Management Console, or CMC for short, is a software as a service offering. It's hosted in IBM Cloud. The application itself runs on IBM Cloud. It works in conjunction with HMC. So basically, there is something called as a cloud connector, which is a daemon, which is a code or daemon which ships with the HMC. And you typically start the cloud connector on the HMC. It starts collecting inventory and utilization information, and then starts pushing out to CMC. So there is a connection required between HMC and CMC, which is a one-way connection, as you can see in this slide. There is an outbound connection required from HMC to CMC, so that HMC or the cloud connector process, which is running inside HMC, can collect the required data and send it across to CMC, on top of which we have built a lot of applications in the CMC platform. Once you start the cloud connector process, you don't have to manually sync. There is no exporting data from HMC and importing into CMC. The cloud connector process on HMC takes care of collecting the data at regular intervals and sending it to the CMC application for it to work with the different apps. The connection is completely secure. It's a secure continuous one-way push. It is encrypted during transit. Data is encrypted at rest as well. We use IBM Cloud database to store the data, inventory and utilization primarily, and the data is encrypted at rest as well. It has also support for proxy servers. So you don't necessarily need to have a direct outbound connection from HMC to CMC. You can also set up a proxy server and provide outbound connection from that proxy server and route all the HMC's data via that proxy server to the Cloud Management Console. We'll talk about some of this cloud connector or the data flows in detail in an upcoming slide. The authentication mechanism currently is IBM ID. So if you have IBM ID, that's what is used for logging into CMC, or when you sign up for CMC, you will be required to provide IBM ID, which can be used for authentication. So the current services, so CMC, when we started conceptually, this was meant to be a single pane of glass view. So today you have multiple HMCs that might be managing different systems across data centers, but you would like to have a view of all the infrastructure across your data centers. So the solution that we came up with was CMC, which can provide a single pane of glass. So you can point all your HMCs to CMC and then look at all your infrastructure at one place, so that you can get visibility into your infrastructure, a better visibility, and also you can derive insights or gain insights out of how your infrastructure is getting used. Is it getting underutilized? Is it getting overutilized? Is there a need for more machines to be bought? So all of that can be gathered from a single place. And because CMC is a software as a service offering, you don't have to install anything specifically on-prem. When you sign up, a CMC instance or application will be created by our team. It will be deployed. Then you will be given a URL and with which you will access CMC. and any updates for security or functional updates, any update releases will be automatically rolled out. The cloud connector, which I mentioned, which is part of HMC, will be shipped with HMC. So any updates that we make to that will be delivered in the form of a regular HMC fix pack or a service pack or a release. It will be combined with that itself. So there is nothing additional that you need to install to make use of CMC. And based on what we see and what feedback we get, there is also future roadmap to see if we can provide you actionable insights or recommendations based on the infrastructure usage. Currently, there are 5 major applications in CMC. So you can consider CMC itself as a platform, right? Like kind of a Play Store kind of experience. And then you have different applications within that CMC platform. So we have inventory, capacity monitoring, log trends, patch planning, and enterprise pools 2.0. Inventory, as the name suggests, it's for viewing all the inventory systems, HMCs, LPARs across your entire data centers. You can view basic health state, and also you have options for viewing additional hardware inventory data. Capacity monitoring provides you aggregated performance or utilization views. It uses data from HMC's performance and capacity monitoring capability. So you have to enable performance and capacity monitoring per system on the HMC to view utilization data on CMC. It also has metrics for shared process pools, and it provides additional value in terms of ability to set thresholds and receive alerts or notifications, either via email or text. I'll talk about a little more detail when we go to the capacity monitoring app. Log trends, this is to show you the operations that are happening in your data center, like kind of audit kind of logs, right? Consider if you're doing live partition mobility or partition creation, deletion, this app will show you how many such operations have happened, have they failed, how much time they have taken, and if they have failed, what are the most common reasons they have failed, so that you can fix those config issues. Patch planning is another useful app. It shows patch compliance reports for all the subsystems, all the power subsystems, firmware, HMC, VOS, all operating system, all of that, and also allows you to create a patch plan. Enterprise Pools 2.0, this is the app which provides you the ability to do shared utility capacity across a pool of Power9 system. So this is the next version of Enterprise Pools. The Enterprise Pools 1.0, where it allowed you mobile capacity. So basically you can share across capacity across systems. We used to call it as mobile capacity. This is the improved version or the next version of the Enterprise Pools 2.0, where it allows for seamless multi-system resource sharing. And then all the usage and everything is tracked, metered, monitored by CMC. And there is metering done by the minute for the enterprise pools. So it's a mix of kind of CapEx plus OpEx model, or moving to a private cloud kind of deployment, where you can deploy a private cloud with the shared utility capacity with some base capacity, which are kind of permanent activations, and then you pay for any additional usage that is more than the base capacity of the pool. So these are the current apps that we have on the CMC platform. So like I said earlier, the App Store user experience, right? So consider this as App Store user experience. So the tiles show you the different apps. The 2 tiles that you see on the right, Power VC, Power HA, these are not really, it's not that Power VC is integrated with CMC. These are other Power software products that are there. And if you have these products in your on-prem, you can kind of add those links here actually. Consider kind of a bookmarking, right? So you can have all those links in one place, dashboard kind of thing. And if they allow remote connection, you can add that URL and name it, give it a name, and then you can launch it from here actually. So there is no direct integration saying there is data collected from Power VC or Power HA kind of stuff. It is just that it allows you to put some bookmarks or enter your other Power software systems into this dashboard view. Let's dive into the apps. So inventory, like I said, it is aggregated centralized inventory view across data centers. So it gives a basic view of managed systems and HMCs and partitions. There is also the full inventory view that shows all the partition detail, system detail. And additionally, it also shows IO hardware inventory, fan and power supply status on supported systems, chat processor pool info. And along with this, it enables you to create tags so that you can group systems into categories for easy monitoring. And recently, we have also added the export CSV option to this inventory app as well. So you can export the data into a CSV format and view it offline or generate a report out of this inventory app at any point of time. That's about the inventory app. And you have also the filter option where you can filter and then search easily if you have a large number of systems and partitions. Capacity monitoring. So this provides aggregated performance views. It provides system level inventory and performance view. And then the drill down into partition level inventory and performance view. Shared processor pool views. It also provides a view of the power usage or the energy metrics at a system level. And one very useful feature with the capacity monitoring app, apart from the aggregated view, is that you can actually set thresholds and then get alerts. So instead of monitoring the system utilization or the partition utilization all the time, you can easily set thresholds saying, I want to receive an alert, or when the system utilization goes beyond 70% or 75%, you can set it up. Then when the system utilization goes about that for a specific period of time, there will be an alert generated. It will be shown in the app, as well as it will be sent to an email or a mobile number if you have entered those or configured those in the CMC. So you can do that for memory allocation, core usage, and shared processor pools. So if I'll show a little more details in the demo, but if you look at the screen, when you go to CMC, there is a settings icon where you can enable in-app notifications. This is enabled by default. Then you can provide email address or phone number to get the alerts or notifications specifically to an email or a phone number. And the notifications are categorized into multiple apps like capacity monitoring. A similar feature for notifications is available with Enterprise Pools 2.0 as well. Logging app, like I mentioned earlier, it shows what is happening in your data center, right? So specifically now what we are looking at here is the live partition mobility, remote restart, and also partition lifecycle operations like create, delete, all of those. So one of the main use cases for this app is you can easily see how much time it is taking for your LPM or remote restart operations to complete. So based on that, if you want to plan an outage, a planned outage, or even for unplanned outage, if you want to understand how much time it's going to take in your data center, you can look at this data and then use this as a heuristic data for predicting how much time it will take for a planned outage when you do LPM, or predicting how much time it might take when unplanned outage happens and you have to do a remote restart, that is restart your partitions on a different system. Patch planning, this is another very useful app actually. So today you might be for updating different subsystems of the power stack, right? You have the firmware, you have the IO adapter firmware, you have the HMC, VOS, then you have AX, IBM Linux, all the operating systems. So now you have to keep all of them up to date, specifically the rate at which security vulnerabilities are being found these days. It's important that at least the security fixes definitely need to be there. And also you might want to have the latest update so that you get the latest functions and features as well. Now, you might be going to different places to get this information. FLRT is one place, Fix Center is another place. Maybe you are using different tools to get this information as well. Patch planning provides a centralized view of all of this. So based on the data that it receives from the HMC, it looks at the current level. it also provides information about what is the latest update or latest upgrade available for that particular subsystem. So it covers HMCs, power firmware, IO adapter microcode, and firmware levels, then the VOS, then all the operating systems, AX, IBM I, and Linux. Specifically for AX and Linux, the only condition is that we would need RMC connection between the HMC and the operating system so that HMC can get to know what is the current level of the OS that is running there. So the OS version is typically fetched via that RMC channel for AX, Linux, or VOS. So based on that, then the patch planning app goes and figures out what is the latest update and provides you a view, a consolidated view, and it categorizes into whether your subsystems are up to date or some of them need update. It categorizes into different categories, and you have filters if you want to update them individually, right? So if you want to update only HMC, you can filter and see what are the HMCs that needs update. Similarly for firmware as well. And additionally, it has the ability to create plans. Uh, the patch planning app does not do an update itself. So today, CMC, most of the things, if you see it as data is view only, it does not do direct management operations. The enterprise pools 2.0 is a little different. Management of the enterprise pools 2.0 is done via CMC, but all the other apps, if you look at it, they directly, it's mostly view only, and they do not trigger any actions on the HMC or the system. But what the patch planning app or the plan option provides you is you can create a plan. So if you want to do a firmware update, and if it is going to be disruptive, then you can create a plan saying you want to update these 4 systems at a specific time, and it might take say 4 hours, and then get it approved by your team so that you can send a mail and then get an approval. They can view and then approve that actually. So that everyone is in sync that at this point of time that system is going to be taken down for a planned outage or a planned patch update actually. So when I show the demo, I'll show how to create that plan as well. So then utility-based pricing model. So this is your Power Enterprise Pools 2.0. So this helps you to deploy a private cloud infrastructure where you can have a shared utility capacity across a collection of power systems. So this is enhanced version of the existing Enterprise Pools 2.0, which enables multi-system resource sharing and also provides fully active by the minute consumption. Uh, all the utilization of the systems in Enterprise Pools 2.0 is monitored and metered via IBM Cloud Management Console. With granular real-time views, we provide you graphs of core usage and memory allocation to view how much actually has been used. You can see how much has been used above the capacity permanent activations. The way Enterprise Pools 2 works is you buy a specific base capacity for each system and then start loading your systems with partition. As long as your usage is within the accumulated or cumulative base capacity of the pool, there is no additional charges. But once the utilization across the systems in the pool goes beyond that base capacity of the pool, then you get charged by the minute actually only for the period where it goes above the base capacity. I'll show you some examples when we get into details of Enterprise Pools 2.0. I want to talk a little bit about this cloud connector or the data flow, right? This is one of the questions that we normally get when customers start deploying CMC. We normally get, okay, what is the connections that are required? How does the connection work? There is a detailed cloud connector security white paper which details a lot of this in detail and also talks about what data is collected and sent to Cloud Management Console. Basically, it is inventory and utilization data, but it gives a detailed breakdown of what data is collected. As you can see here, now HMC already has this cloud connector built in. So when you install HMC, the latest levels, so it has the cloud connector built in. When you request a CMC instance to be set up, once the instance is set up, there will be a key that will be generated, a unique key for a customer. And if you go to CMC, that key will be there. I'll show you that as well when we see the demo. So the command also will be given what command you have to execute on the HMC. So you copy paste that command and execute on the HMC to start the cloud connector. Once it is started, using that unique key, the cloud connector establishes trust with your CMC instance. So your CMC instance is already running, then it establishes trust actually there. Once the trust is established, it gets the required credentials for pulling the configuration of the cloud connector and the required certificates to establish a secure channel for pushing the data. After getting the credentials for the configuration, it fetches the config file and SSL certificates. Then it creates a secure channel to the data ingestion node. The connection from Cloud Connector to CMC can be a direct outbound connection. So you can directly open up the HMC to say specific IP and port you can open up, or it could be via only HTTPS proxy. So this requires HMC v9 R1 M941 or later for the support for the HTTPS proxy only. So when CMC was launched till v9 R1 M941 came out last year, it came out in second quarter of last year. Till that point, the proxy was supported with a combination of HTTPS and SOX proxy. And many customers had concerns about using SOX proxy due to their security constraints within their data centers. So we enabled the ability to use only HTTPS proxy starting v9 R1 M941. So there are three modes that you can connect to from Cloud Connector to CMC. And when you connect HMC to CMC, there are three endpoints that you require connection to. One is, as you can see, one is to this CMC application instance itself. That's where the first connection happens. The second one is to this CMC cloud database where your data is stored. Then the third one is this data ingestion node to which the data will be pushed. Eventually, that data ingestion node will push it to the cloud database to store your data. So we require outbound connectivity to three endpoints. A couple of them are ports 443. One of them is port 5044. So that's the current requirements. It can be a fully qualified domain name or IP. You can choose if you want fully qualified domain name or IP when you are requesting. And once that CMC instance is deployed, then you can go to the CMC. You can view all these details in the Cloud Connector settings in CMC. I'll show you that as well. And one of the other things that we normally see is that when starting this Cloud Connector, there is sometimes customers run into problems with connectivity, right? There can be problems with the connectivity between HMC and the cloud, or between HMC and the cloud via the proxy. So we have a command called diag cloudcon in the HMC itself, which basically checks whether you have the proper connection to the HMC from HMC to CMC or not. So it tells you where exactly there might be connection loss if it is not properly connected. In this case, you can see it is active. That means it is already connected. There is a command to check the Cloud Connector status. LSSPC is the command to check the Cloud Connector status. If it is active, that means connection is proper. You have connection to all the three endpoints. If it is not active, if it is inactive, or if it is stuck in initializing, so there might be cases where one of these endpoints, HMC or the Cloud Connector, is not to reach. Either it is not able to reach the data ingestion node or cloud storage or the customer portal. So you also, apart from the apps that we saw, you have different settings within CMC. So managing users, right? So when you sign up for CMC, a default admin user is created, which is what you would request when you do the CMC activation form. You can request what should be the default admin ID. That ID will be tagged with admin, and that admin user can add further users. So any user who wants access to your own CMC instance has to be added by one of the admin or the other users. So when you add a user, you can add them as admin user, or you can give access to specific apps. You can tell saying this user needs access only to inventory versus the other user needs access only to capacity monitoring. So different app access can be granted for non-admin users. The admin user gets access to all the apps. And for enterprise pools, typically you need to be the admin user. So anybody who wants to use enterprise pools, they need to be the admin users. And also we have equivalent function similar to user management. We have resource roles management as well. So if you know in HMC, there is a resource role where you can restrict access to specific resources for specific users. So similar way, you can create resource roles in CMC as well at a systems and partitions or virtual IO server level. Then if you think a certain business unit needs access only to specific systems and VMs, then you can give that resource role for that user. So this is all under the control of you and as admin to create these roles and assign the appropriate role to the users that are getting added to CMC. And like I said earlier, right, the Power software links, it provides options to add other Power software. So you can add one or more links. It doesn't mean that we are getting any data from those software products like Power VC or Power HE, any of this. This is just like more like a bookmarking that you are doing here. You are saving it here. Then you can launch from here if they provide remote access. So it kind of, you can use this as a dashboard for all your Power Systems software products to launch them. Okay. I think I'll take some questions before we move on to this session. Next section. Yeah.
Thanks, Harry. Just a quick interruption on my part first, because there are some questions about whether people can get hold of the slide deck and things like that. So I just wanted to let you know this session is being recorded and the replay for the session as well as the slide deck will be available later. So I'll post those up hopefully later on today UK time. And if you're on the PowerVug subscribers list, then you'll automatically get notified. If you're not, just send me an email. My email's in the chat window. So I've covered that one off because there were a couple of questions on that. Right, so the next question was to do with inventory report. So CMC inventory report, does it go down to the IO expansion drawer, IO card level detail? And Turgut from our Systems Lab Services already answered that in that we don't go into the IO drawers or card detail level. But in terms of the microcode inventory and update recommendations, the patch planning does give you recommendations.
Yeah, the IO details are also shown. I'll show a demo actually. The IO hardware IO inventory is shown based on whether that is available on the HMC, right? Even on the HMC, all the IO details, I mean, today we show on the HMC IO details that is given by the system. Then if you want to drill down into IO inventory, slot children into slots and all, there is additional data typically is collected. It's called as IO or data, IO inventory data. So that is shown, I can show that. And yes, like Turgut mentioned, right, we do provide IO microcode adapters, patch levels and recommendations as part of the patch planning app. So I'll show that. Then the next question is memory. Yes, I mean, does the CMC get VP data from the machine, CPU, CCINs, memory, etc.? The memory details are there, but I don't think we get into CCINs. I can verify that and confirm. If you can send me a note, I can verify that and confirm. But yes, the patch planning app does cover IBMI as well. So that was, I think, the other question. Does patch planning app handles IBMI? Yes, it handles IBMI as well. The next question is, yeah.
I was just going to say, yeah, the next question was the CMC monitor. Can the CMC monitor HMC for performance problems?
No, currently CMC is not monitoring the HMC's performance data itself. So the HMC's performance data is, I mean, any performance data is not shown. This is mainly for the systems and the partitions performance data, but not for the HMC's performance. That's one of the things that that we want to look at as a future one where the HMC's performance can also be monitored, but it's not there currently.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is, I think, Jyoti, one more question is there, the patch plan divided by partition. You can filter by AX, Linux, and IBM I or VOS. So you have filters in the patch planning app. I'll show you when we do the demo of that patch planning app.
Okay. There was another question about, can you just repeat the port numbers that must be used for the cloud connector? 443 and 444, were they? I can look that up in the security page.
Two endpoints are 443. One endpoint is 5044, 5044.
Okay.
Then I think Target answered another question. Okay, performance issues. I think he has answered performance issues. So in a shared infrastructure scenario, if we have multiple customers LPAR running on our system, we usually do not share access to extra customer. Can we give CMC access to each customer? Yeah, user LPAR details and CMC from HMC. Yes, you can do that. I think you have the option for both user roles and resource roles that I just talked about. So if you want your customers to have granular access, I can go a couple of slides back as well. So you can select which apps they want to access. If you just want to give an inventory view, you can just give them the inventory view. Or if you want to give them only inventory and capacity monitoring, you can give that as well. And then in the resource roles, you can restrict what resources they can have access to. So based on this selection and what you have attached to that particular user, only those will be shown to that user when they log in to CMC. So yes, to answer that question, yes, you have that capability with CMC.
Okay, and then there's a couple of questions related to licensing. So is there a licensing and trial? So is there a way to test CMC for a number of days with the trial license instead of buying one?
So there is a hosted trial that we offer. I can post the link in the PPT, and then when I send it, Jyoti, after the meeting, there is a hosted trial that we offer. So that hosted trial, we can give access. Typically, you can sign up for access for 3 days, 72 hours actually. So you can play around with CMC. There is no try and buy currently. If customers wants to say attach their systems to that trial, right? That option is not available, but there is a hosted trial available for customers to go and look at all these apps except for Enterprise Pools 2.0. So we don't have Enterprise Pools 2.0 in that hosted trial, but other apps are there. All the other apps that I talked about are there in that hosted trial.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to sign up for that, they can reach out to me. I can guide them on the hosted trial. Yeah, I think Target already pasted that link. Thanks, Target.
There was a question related to that, in that how is the CMC price for these apps and power servers managed?
Yeah, I have that answer in the next slide, but
okay,
I have the answer in the next slide. I'll just answer when I go to the next slide.
That's fine.
For the pricing actually. I think there is a question on what happens if HMC loses connectivity to CMC. So when HMC loses connectivity to CMC, obviously data cannot be pushed. The utilization data that that we collect is kept for some period of time, after which it might roll. It might roll over, and then the logs might roll, and then you might not have the data. But for some period of time, utilization data will be there. And inventory is periodically collected. The inventory information is periodically collected. Once in a while, the cloud connector pulls and collects and sends the data. So once the connection is established, the other data will be sent. But if it isn't for an extended period of time, there is a disconnect between HMC to CMC, then you might lose some utilization data, or at that point of time, if there are any state changes happening, you might lose inventory state changes at that point of time. That is one thing that you might lose. For enterprise pools, enabling performance and capacity monitoring and having a connection from HMC to CMC is mandatory. So you can't stop CMC if your system is there in enterprise pools or the cloud connector. Similarly, you can't disable PCM or performance and capacity monitoring if your system is in enterprise pools 2.0.
Okay. There are more questions, but shall we take them a little bit later on? Otherwise, I fear we might not get through the session that the demos that you want to show.
Okay, so you, Jyoti, you know where we stopped, right? So we can start
Yes.
from. Okay, sure. Yeah, maybe some of these slides will answer some of these questions, and we can get back at the end of this presentation before we switch over to the demo.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. So some of these frequently asked questions, right? There may be more, but I just listed some of them. Where will this platform be hosted? The CMC, because it's a software as a service offering, where will this be hosted? Currently, it is hosted in 2 regions in the IBM Cloud. One is US South, Dallas, and then the Frankfurt regions. There are future plans to expand to other geos. So this year we are looking at expanding to some other geos as well to host CMC. And if you have any specific preference, you or other customers that you work with will require some specific regions, please reach out to me. That will be helpful for us to plan or prioritize what geos we should look at to expand the CMC hosting on. And do you have to install anything? You don't have to install anything. Fixes and updates will be automatically rolled out. So all that's required is actually to enable Cloud Connector on HMCs. How much does it cost? So I think this was the question, right? So the pricing is based on a per socket per month basis. There are term offerings. There are term offerings monthly, I mean, the 3 month, 6 month, 12 month, and then I think 36 month term offerings that are available. If you have a Power 8 cloud model, the 850C or 880C, or Power 9, 950 or 980 systems, there is a built-in entitlement period with those. So you can use CMC for with that built-in entitlement period for free. Then you can buy additional term offerings as required. Actually, the entitlement typically starts when the system is shipped or when the system is received. So if you have some systems, maybe you can look at those and then see if you avail your entitlement or you can avail your entitlement. Can I manage the system from apps? That is another thing that we get. So the initial goal is to provide read-only views of data. The data center pushes the HMC, the cloud connector pushes data to the cloud, not the other way around. Enterprise Pools 2.0, the management of the pools, including creation, metering, is done with CMC. Even in this case, Enterprise Pools 2.0 does not directly have an inbound connectivity. The cloud connector, which is reading data from the enterprise pools, reads and executes some tasks on the HMC required for managing the enterprise pools 2.0. Some security questions that we normally get is data encrypted at transit and at rest? Yes, data is encrypted completely through transit and also at rest when it is stored in the cloud database. And also we get questions about security fixes. So IBM, as you all know, IBM has a very strong security process, and CMC follows the same. Security vulnerabilities are tracked, fixed, and whenever there are fixes, updates are rolled out automatically to CMC. And the other question, which we also have a feature for, was can certain data fields be restricted from being sent to the CMC? Yes, today you can filter out the system or partition IP address from being sent to the CMC. You require a minimum HMC level for that. And if you have other thoughts on some other fields that might be useful to be added to this list, please do let us know. Send me a note. Please feel free to send me a note on other fields that might be interesting to be added to this restriction list for data sending to the CMC. The authentication mechanism today, it is based on IBM ID. So you need to have IBM ID to access CMC. So any user who you add to CMC should have IBM ID to access CMC. Let's move on to Enterprise Pools 2.0. So this is, like I said earlier, this is the next version of the capacity offering, capacity on demand. IBM has done capacity on demand for many years now, and we have had multiple offerings on capacity on demand, Elastic COD. Then we had the Power Enterprise Pools where we use mobile capacity. Now this is the latest version, which is the Power Enterprise Pools 2.0. which enables shared utility capacity across a pool of Power 9 systems. So initially when it was launched, it was supported only on E980. Last year, we worked on this and enabled it on the mid-range and the scale-out boxes as well. One thing on the scale-out boxes is that this is supported only on the G model systems on scale-out boxes. So S922 or 924 G model. So that's the model on which Enterprise Pools 2 is supported. One machine type is supported per pool. What that means is that you can have all E980s in one pool or E950s in one pool and S922 or 924s in one pool, but you cannot put a E980 and E950 in a single pool or E950 and S922 in a single pool. So your enterprise pools boundary is that it is per country as well as it is one machine type, either E980 or E950 or S922/S924G. And when you purchase servers, you purchase them with some base capacity, which is aggregated and shared across the pool. So the base capacity on each system is added up and considered as the total capacity for the pool. And utilization across the systems in the pool is compared against that base capacity for additional metering. When you add a system to the pool, so if you look at other COD options, right? So you have some installed capacity on the system. Then you have something called as activated or configured and what is available. So you might have some capacity installed on your system, but it is not activated for use. So in the case of Enterprise Pools 2.0, what happens is that when you put a system in a pool, all capacity is activated for use, but you are not charged unless you go beyond the base capacity usage of the pool. Now, this is where the Cloud Management Console with HMC comes into picture, where CMC tracks the utilization by getting the data from HMC and then calculates whether the utilization is going above the pool's base capacity and debits minutes real time against capacity credits. So when you purchase systems for enterprise pools, or when you purchase Enterprise Pools 2.2, you also have to buy something called as a capacity credits. So these are kind of prepaid. So you buy some credits and then you will have a rate sheet which will show you how much utilization is considered for one credit, and CMC will automatically calculate, and when the utilization goes beyond the base capacity, it will meter and then debit from the credits. So currently we track processor, memory, AX and IBM I licenses. Linux is in the roadmap. It is not yet there, but Linux is in the roadmap as well. Now this is what we talked about earlier. So this helps you to deploy a private cloud infrastructure across these systems. Initially, when it was launched with the E980, there was a minimum capacity which was much more than 1 core and 256 GB. But last year there was an announcement came where you can buy as low as 1 core and 256 GB with pay-per use for the remaining actually. And also the other feature that we enabled, a couple of major features that we enabled last year was when Enterprise Pools was launched, you could only have shared processor pool partitions in the Enterprise Pools. So basically any system you put as part of Enterprise Pools 2.0 has to have all shared processor pools and not dedicated partitions. So we removed that restriction and added support for dedicated processor partitions in last year with HMC 950 and firmware 950. We also increased the scaling to 1,500 partitions and 48 systems in fourth quarter 2020. There is a limit of 500 partitions per HMC when you're using in conjunction with CMC. We are working on lifting that or increasing that to 1,000 in a future update actually. So it will be expanded to 1,000 partitions per HMC, but currently it is 500 is what is the limit per HMC and 1,500 per pool and 48 systems in a pool. So just to illustrate how Enterprise Pools 2 works, right? So in this example, as you can see, there are 3 systems that are part of the pool, and you can see there are different base capacity. So the base capacity is considered as your permanent activations. You can consider them as your permanently activated capacity. In the sense, when you put a system in the pool, all capacity is available for use, but base is what you actually bought when you purchased the system actually. So there is no charges for using the base capacity. Now, one system has 32, one system has 64, the other system has 96. Now, when CMC starts monitoring, you can see system A is using above its base capacity. The partitions running on system A is using above its base capacity, but then system B is using below its base capacity. So basically, the usage of the system B using its capacity below the base offsets the additional usage from system B. So eventually, your overall utilization across the pool does not cross the base capacity. So your total base capacity for the pool is now 96 plus 64 plus 32. So basically, it's 192, right? So that is your overall base capacity. So as long as your utilization across the pool, across systems in the pool does not exceed 192, then there is no additional charges. There is 0 metered minutes because base is what you already bought and you are using. Now, in this specific example, system B's partitions also started using a little bit more, even though it is still under base, but they started using a little bit more. At some point of time, what has happened is the aggregated utilization across these systems have gone above the base. So what happens in this case is CMC meters or debits credits only for the period where the utilization is above this particular base. And this is done on a permanent basis. And for whatever utilization you are using above that, only for that it is calculated. There is a rate card in CMC which will explain how much utilization is mapping to how many credits. So based on that, the calculation is done and credits are debited. The other thing that I would like to mention is in CMC, even though we talk about CPU and memory, memory is tracked based on allocation, not based on the actual OS utilization. It is allocation. CPU is actual utilization, but memory is based on allocation. The EP app in CMC it provides multiple features. You create a pool, then you add systems to the pool. You can set a monthly budget for metered capacity consumption. You can use the different graphs to see what is the total usage, what is the metered usage for both core and memory as well. And you can also drill down within a selected period to zoom in and view usage by VM, usage by partition, usage by system. It also provides view of how much credits you have on the EP specific to that pool, how much have been consumed, and also the breakdown. It has an option. It shows a usage statement. It's a quarterly usage statement. You can export that as well. You can export that and then generate a report out of that as well. And it has the ability to set thresholds and receive alerts as well. Similar to what we talked about for capacity monitoring, enterprise pools also allows you to set thresholds and get alerts. You can set thresholds for budget. When your budget is going low, that also can be set actually. And when your capacity credits is going low, you can set alerts, thresholds for those and get alerts as well. So some of the frequently asked questions when we talk about enterprise pools, what happens when your remaining credit balance reaches 0? So usage will continue as is, and the metered usage will be continually calculated, and the balance might show as negative. If your balance is not refreshed in after 30 days, then resource throttling processor throttling is started on each system. So each system, the throttling will be done to bring down the usage to the base capacity of that particular system. So this is not done across the pool, but it will be done on a system basis actually. The other question that we get is, can we configure shared processor pools, or how can we limit number of cores? So this is, as you do it today, you can configure shared processor pool on the HMC. So this has no effect on whether you put the system in the EP pool or not. Same thing with number of cores, right? So if you want to limit the number of cores, you can do this by the partition settings and the shared processor pool limits, right? You can set a max capacity for a shared processor pool. You can also set the limits at a partition level on how much max it can use. So those factors don't change because of using along with EP 2.0. The one thing that I want to notice in dedicated partitions, if it is dedicated donate, then it is based on actual utilization. But if it is not, then it is based on the allocation. So whatever you are allocating, that will be considered as utilized if you are using dedicated processors as part of enterprise pools. Can we migrate partitions in and out of the pool? Yes, there is no restriction on migration or restarting a partition on another system. In case both your systems, the source and the target systems, are in the same pool, TP is intelligent enough to understand that it's the same UID, so it will not charge you twice. It will make sure that utilization is counted once. And can you increase your base activations? Yes, you can increase the base capacity. So if you see your average utilization, so you can view your utilization, you can view as metering in EP. And if you consistently see, for example, you bought 192, but if you're consistently seeing that you are using, say, 198 all the time, then it might be better you just increase that to do 198 and then keep the others for the spikes or the metered capacity. So you can increase the base capacity. So there is a good red book that has been written on specifically on enterprise pools. Turgut and others have written, Garrett and others, I think Sabine, everybody was involved in that. I'm actually going to use one of the portals that they used for demo as well. But there is a good red book which goes in depth of some of these enterprise pools 2 concepts. What must you do for planning? There are some lab services offerings which can help you with planning for enterprise pools 2.0 as well. So I would recommend looking at that red book apart from the articles that we have published for CMC as well. So that's all I had on the presentation before we switch over to the demo, Jyoti. So maybe we can take some questions now before we switch over to the demo. I think we have some time to take the questions now.
Okay, sounds good. It's been highly interactive. There's lots of questions coming in, and I want to thank Turgut and also Sabine for answering some of the questions already.
Thank you.
If I go back through where we got to, so there was a couple of questions on if the HMC loses connectivity to the CMC. I think you kind of, well, it was answered in the chat already. What happens basically?
Right. I think I answered that till that question.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, we'll take from next one. Yeah.
There's a question about performance. Does collecting the sort of system details, will that have an impact on HMC performance?
So there is, I mean, you already have this feature called performance and capacity monitoring on the HMC, irrespective of whether you use CMC or not. So if you enable that, that is all is required for collecting data. So you should not have major performance impacts because of enabling CMC or collecting performance data. And also, please note that there are no agents running on the different on VOS or anywhere on the OS for collecting this data, right? This is data that the HMC collects from the system, the hypervisor, and the VOS. So there are no additional agents that are running to collect data from the operating systems as well. So there's a built-in capability in the platform, and CMC is extending that capability or using that capability for further purposes.
Excellent, thank you. There were some questions on Linux, and I think we answered that already.
Linux subscription, yeah. Linux software license is not tracked separately today. It's in our roadmap, but not today. CoreOS is an interesting question. So we are discussing some things on the CoreOS, but yeah, CoreOS is an interesting thing, right? Because it is Red Hat, RHEL and SLES are some things that are identified, but then CoreOS is a variation of that. So yes, eventually it will be handled, Udo. So CoreOS will also be eventually handled, but yeah, currently none of the Linux software metering is there, but it's there in the roadmap.
Okay. There was Turgut posted a link to the hosted trial details. Right. So I will include some of these useful links along with the replay and in the info page as well with the session. So they will be there. Statement of direction regarding Power 10, CMC and Power Impress pool support, and Turgut already answered that yesterday. We had a few things that we basically a statement of direction will be there soon about this.
It is not yet announced. Statement of direction is not announced, but yeah, the Power 10 systems will be supported with the enterprise pools 2.0 as well eventually. Okay. But yeah, there will be some announcements coming in there.
Okay, watch this space then.
Right. Can we get CPU memory utilization details per LPAR, including IBM LPAR? Yes. Like I said, memory is allocation, not the actual utilization from the OS, but CPU, yes, you can get the utilization data actually. So this is utilization data that we get from the HMC, similar to what the performance and capacity monitoring app, performance and capacity monitoring feature shows.
Okay.
Then are there plans to include storage and SAN in the patch planning? Currently, not. I think we have an equivalent product called Storage Insights on the storage side actually. So maybe that is something to look at. But currently, there is no plan to directly integrate storage and SAN in the patch planning app. But that's an interesting thought that maybe we can go back and explore to see a single pane of glass where every power component can be seen.
Okay. Just looking at ones that haven't yet been answered regardless.
Yeah, I think Turgut and Udo had some good conversations. Thanks again, Turgut, for answering some of these questions. Are we able to get the IP ranges locked down or provided for? Unfortunately, we'll not be able to do the IP ranges because when we deploy the CMC, we get that time the IP is assigned. And also the portal itself is a fully qualified domain name. You get something like trial power cloud or CMC demo -power cloud .bluemix.net. And depending on your region, if you are US South or Frankfurt, there will be a region suffix as well. So the port numbers, like I mentioned, it is 443 and 5044, but the IP will be known when your instance is deployed.
Okay, I think we've answered the question about the inbuilt or built-in entitlement for the CMC for certain systems. That's been answered. Yeah, more questions about connectivity.
Yeah, I think understand that we should not switch off our PCM, but how is billing handled in case of network glitch? Or so there is some period of time for which the HMC can store the data, right? It's not like forever, but there is some period of time where the collected performance data is still there. So if there is a network glitch, if say for 5 minutes there is network connection lost, then HMC should catch up, the cloud connector should catch up and then send that data. But if it's for a permanent period, then it becomes a problem actually. And that's where we recommend saying you use dual HMCs so that if one HMC has a problem, the other HMC can still push data. And on the CMC side, the apps handle, they know that this utilization is coming from the same LPAR or the same system. So they don't calculate them 2 times. They have the intelligence to calculate once, consider that as one LPAR. So that's the one. And we are also working on some notifications in case these kind of situation happens, right? Today, what happens is if some connectivity problem is there and then your usage is not seen or data is not getting sent, you have to go to CMC and notice data is not getting sent. So we are working on some form of notification that can be given to the user when data is not coming for an extended period of time.
Okay.
And also I'll show in the demo, there is a cloud connector status that is shown in the CMC as well, which shows whether currently HMC is connecting to CMC or not.
Okay. There were some questions about IBMI and the license programs included, and that's been answered, so we'll skip past those. Okay, there's a minimum number of credits or core credits to purchase, for example, for S922 or S914 to use with the Power Enterprise Pools 2.0. Is there a minimum? I think that's what they're asking. Is there a minimum number of credits that you base credits, I guess?
The base credit, you definitely have to buy minimum base capacity. Like you said, it is 1 core and then 250 GB, and it's not per OS again, right? This is on the system actually. So on 1 core and 250 GB is a minimum on that activation. But the credits, I think you can buy it. It's not like you have to buy so many credits, but there might be a minimum. I can double check and confirm if somebody wants info on the minimum number of credits.
Okay. And then there's a question about if you're using Power Enterprise Pools 1.0, then can you upgrade to 2.0? And yes, of course, that is
Right.
encouraged and possible, as Turgut
Right.
says.
Right. You can upgrade. There is a specific process to do that. There is a process to do that, and then I think our teams will be able to help. I think LBS, if I'm not wrong, Target LBS as a engagement to do that as well, right? Upgrading from PEP 1.2 to 2.0.
Yeah, LBS being lab services.
Yeah, lab
Yes,
services. Yeah, yeah, lab
yes,
services.
indeed. They can help with this.
Right.
Okay.
So PEP core usage, different type of graph. Instead, real cores. So Udo has a question. Yeah, Udo, we are evaluating this. This is we are evaluating this as a request. I think this request came in via RFE as well, request for enhancement as well. Instead of core minutes, can we show the actual cores utilized? We are evaluating that to be put into our roadmap. So you might see that somewhere down in our roadmap.
Okay. Still more questions. I don't know whether you want to continue with the demonstration now, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, I can do that, or we can take some more questions.
Okay, up to you.
Time is there. Yeah.
Yeah, we have about 30 minutes, so just under 30 minutes left.
Sure. We can take some more questions, Jyoti, and then go to a demo.
Okay.
Are there any plans to set up a post-paid resource? Currently not. I mean, we're looking into some of that because I think this request has come from some customers as well for post-paid. But currently, there are no plans to do a post-paid for credits actually. So then I think there are some questions that Sabine and Target are answering.
That's right. Yes. CBU questions, which Sabina's answering. Is there any chance to add already bought capacity on CPU from E980 to the new Enterprise Pools 2.0 and then use it on a new E980 system?
There is a mechanism to convert a static capacity. I mean, if you're talking about the same system being in enterprise pools, there is a mechanism to convert that static capacity to a base capacity. There is a process to do that. Actually, there is a specific process that you have to go through that on the same system. I assume the question is referring to the same system, right? Not like transferring a static capacity from one system to another system. Okay.
Adding.
There is minimum number of credits to purchase. Yeah, that we answered. Scale out G models. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was just going to say almost to the end now that what happens during LPM, so live partition mobility on the PEP level, because during that time the LPAR is running on two systems. Well,
right. So the enterprise pools, if it is within the enterprise pools, right, both the systems, then enterprise pools understands it's the same LPAR based on the unique identifier. So it does not charge you twice. It understands, it calculates only once that it is the one same LPAR. If it is anyway outside of the enterprise pools, then you have to have capacity on the other system. If you're moving from a system in enterprise pools to a system which is outside of enterprise pool, so you have to have enough capacity on that system to host the LPAR. If it is the other way, it is like it will be metered based on when the LPAR is running. But if both the systems are in a pool, then enterprise pools has intelligence to understand that the same LPAR, so you're not double charged on that case.
Okay.
Okay,
I think we'll move on.
End this. Yeah, I'll end this while the questions keep coming in, right? Keep the questions coming in. I'll just move here.
Okay, there was a question to me about when will this information or the slide deck and replay be available. I plan to make it available as soon as I can later on this today in UK time, so in a few hours time. I try and get the info out as soon as I can. It's just as soon as the replay is generated and I pull all the information together. So hopefully we'll be there.
So can you see my screen, Jyoti, now?
I can, yes.
Okay. So now this is the CMC dashboard, right? So when you log into CMC, this is the dashboard that you get actually. Now, before getting into the apps, I'll show you some settings actually. So when you sign up for CMC, the important things to look at is here there will be only one user, which will be the admin user. The other users are added manually actually. Now we go to the Cloud Connector tab. Here it will show you the fully qualified domain names or the IP address to which you will need connectivity. So if you look at this, like I said earlier, it's 443 for 2 endpoints and then 5044 for the other 2 endpoints. And you are the IP address or the fully qualified domain name for those. So now these are the endpoints you will need connectivity from the HMC, either direct or via proxy. Then you can have data filters enabled here as well. You can say we don't want to send the managed system IP or the LPAR IP to CMC, so you can enable it. You can also add block list for managed system, right? Like you can say you don't want to monitor specific systems, you only want to monitor, say, if your HMC is managing 10 systems, you can say I want to monitor only 5 systems. In that case, you can add a list, basically enter your MTMS, or you can upload a CSV as well. So you can enter one by one manually, or you can upload a CSV with a list of systems with the MTMS, and that those will not be monitored by the Cloud Connector or the CMC. Then at the end, if you look at it, there is this Cloud Connector startup command. So you see this key is unique per customer. So this key is basically what is the uniqueness which allows you to connect this particular portal. And along with this, there might be other options that are required based on whether you're using a proxy or you're not using a proxy. Based on that, there might be other options that are required. So this command gives you the basic without proxy. If you want to add proxy and if you want to add specific authentication for the proxy, there are other options that are available in the chsvc command itself. And there is a status tab. So this is under Cloud Connector Management. There is a status tab which shows the Cloud Connector status. So if you look at this, now currently all of them are sending data, but there was questions around what happens when data is not being sent. So this status will change. This will show data is not being sent here. So the status will change. So that is one indicator. And like I said earlier, we are working on creating some notifications so that you can set a notification and get alerts when data is not being sent or there is a network connection between HMC and CMC. Then you are the manage users. So you can add a new user. You have to give their IBM ID, email ID, and then resource roles. You can select any of the resource roles. Currently only admin role. Then you can choose whether it is admin or any of the apps that are required. Similar way, the resource role, right? So you can create a new resource role if you want to. You can select, say, I want to select only a specific system, right? So I want to select only the P8 or the, say, for example, P8 and all the partitions under that P8. I can say P8 resource role. Resource role. So now when you add someone new user, you can say them P8 resource. This is one way of restricting access. If you have multiple customers access to a data infrastructure, so you, instead of giving access to HMC for monitoring this thing. Then we get on to the apps. So inventory, like I said, it shows your inventory view, managed systems, partitions, and virtual servers. All of that shows actually. Then you get into the full inventory. You have the different views here. So you can filter by system. You also have the option to add a tag. So like I said, you can select any of this and then add a tag, actually add a new tag. So you can say add a P7 system tag. So create new tag. So you can add that, and then that tag can be added to others. You have the export CSV option. You can use this to export in a CSV format. You can filter the table, select specific elements on the table, search and filter specific elements on the table, then export as well if you want a granular data. There is also filters available by state, the type, machine type, model, all of these filters are available by system firmware, all of this. Similar way, there is partitions and VOS data available. Same information is available for shared storage pool clusters as well. I think there was a question on IO, right? IO information.
That's right.
Let me pull that information. So if you look at this, the processor memory we show, but not to the level of CCIN or something. I think there was another question on CCIN. We don't show CCIN level details, but we do show what is the installed and quantities of that. Then IO we show here. If you look at this IO, then more details we show vendor ID, all of that. So it depends on what data is available on the HMC. If the HMC shows you complete IO details, you should see it here as well. Your power supplies detail as well on the system, the power supply status. What is the power supply status? Similarly, fans as well. So these are additional information that are available at a system level, and shared processor pool. So if you have multiple pools, then you can view the shared processor pool detail here as well. And you can manage your tags here. So once you add a tag, you can manage. I'll just delete this tag. Yeah, I can delete this tag later. Then let's move on to the capacity monitoring. So you can see it gives an overall view of all your infrastructure, total available cores, installed cores, inactive cores, all of that. Then there is a table view for each system. So you can drill down into each of these system, and you can see the utilization on each of those. You have the option to zoom in. So you can select a specific time period and then zoom in and view why there is a utilization spike, or if you want to analyze some spikes, you can zoom in to that level as well. The different metrics that we collect, core usage, memory, like I said, it is allocation. So most of the time you might see a flat line, and then whenever you are increasing the memory allocation, then you might see a increase and then again a flat line, because we are calculating allocation here. Network storage traffic is also shown. Power usage is also shown here. So this is the energy metrics or the power metrics that we collect in HMC. HMC exposes this via API, but not via UI. CMC provides a UI for the power usage for the system. And then you can drill down into partitions, similar way what I showed for systems. You can drill down into each of those partitions and view the data as well. Different data, core usage, memory allocation, network and storage traffic, all of that. So here also you can zoom actually, but nothing much is being used here. And you have the option to export CSV here as well. So for all of this, you have the options to export CSV. Same way data is shown in shared processor pool, shared storage pool, all of that is shown. Now, one thing that I definitely wanted to show was this settings, right? So there is a capacity monitoring settings. You can say how frequently you want the data refresh to be done on the UI. This is only on the UI actually. So data on the backend will get reflected, keep getting collected, but how frequently you want to. The default it is set auto refresh. Then you can set it to refresh data manually if you want to. There are some thresholds you can set, like system level thresholds. If you look at this, this has been set saying this is a system and 70% install cores for 5 minutes. If the utilization is more than 70% or 70% or more for continuously 5 minutes, then send me an alert or notification. That's what this has been set. Similarly, memory allocation. Similarly, you can do it at partition thresholds. So you can set multiple thresholds based on how you want to monitor. And the notifications will come across here. Currently, there is no capacity monitoring notification, but notifications will come across here actually. So if you look at this, there are some enterprise pools 2.0 notifications. I'll show the enterprise pools 2.0 as well. Then in the settings, you can enter email address and phone number. So currently it is only one email address and one phone number that is supported for you to get the notification. Please switch to the patch planning app. So as you can see here, right, the patch planning app, the different categories are shown here: type, firmware, adapter, all of that. So there is up to date. A lot of them are already up to date, like VOS in this case is up to date already. There is nothing much to update. So, and some of them needs update. So adapter, IO adapter, you see a lot of them needs an update, right? So the IO adapter microcode, a lot of them needs an update. Now, if you filter by firmware, I think there was a question on whether you can filter by different subsystem. Yes, you can filter by AX, Linux, all those categories you can filter, and you can filter by firmware. Now you can select all of this. You can create a new plan. So you say, I want all of this to be part of this new plan, and say firmware upgrade. So please remember that this does not automatically upgrade anything. This does not do the upgrade itself. It just creates a plan. Now you can select which level you want to upgrade to. So I'm selecting this is the level on that PH system that I want to upgrade to. And once this is done, then sharing options you have. So you can go to sharing options after enabling a maintenance schedule. So 4 hours, say for example, I'll do it at 9:30 a.m. on tomorrow. So once it is saved, so you have to set a duration, the time at which you will start, what is the level you are going to upgrade, what are the elements you want to upgrade. Then you go to sharing option, then you can enter your email ID. In this case, I'll just enter my email ID. So if I enter my email ID, I'm going to get an email saying uh, there is a patch plan approval required. These are the plans, kind of thing. Then whoever is getting that email, you can give them access to CMC specifically for patch planning app. They can come and view what you are doing with this plan. Then logging, like I said earlier, currently it tracks mainly live partition mobility, remote restart, and partition lifecycle operations. So it gives you a overall view of how many operations are happening, right? In this case, it says so many operations have happened, and there are some failed operations. Then it gives you a count of how many times it has failed with a specific reason. So if you click on any of this, it takes you to that specific reason. So you can check why this has been failed, so you can fix any config problems that are there. Uh, then then you can see the time taken for each of this. Then there are some additional stats that are shown in CMC specifically that are not shown in the HMC. It is collected. The detailed stats for LPM are shown in CMC. In each phase, how much time is taken for LPM, that is shown in CMC as well. Okay. Then enterprise pools. So this is the landing page where it shows the overall inventory and it shows the systems which are part of the pool here. You can see there is only one system which is part of the pool. How much of the core is used, how much of the memory, total memory is used, all of that it shows. Now I'll start from the core usage. So if you go to the core usage, it provides a drill down view of how your core is getting, core utilization is happening. So you can zoom in specific period. Actually, you can update the table data. Then you can view how your partitions are viewing, right? Partitions are using this utilization actually. You have the option to view by metered usage. So if you look at it, the total usage showed that you are always using a lot of things, but then the metered usage shows only for specific periods, because only for those periods the usage has gone beyond the overall base capacity of the pool. And it has the option to show per credits as well, how many credits are debited, that also it shows. Similar way for memory usage as well. So memory usage also shows similar views actually. And when you set thresholds or when you set thresholds or when you get alerts, right, the thresholds, if the thresholds are exceeded, in the table also it is highlighted, actually it is highlighted in red that there are some thresholds that has been exceeded for enterprise pools. Same thing for capacity monitoring as well. There will be some indication to show you in the graph saying the threshold has been exceeded. This is the budget page. So basically, you can set a budget for each month on how much credits you want to be used. For example, if you look at this, this has been set as three credits, which means that you want to use up only 3 credits above and beyond the base capacity. Now, what happens when you already used 3 credits? In this case, one is already used. Now you have some more time left in this month. So what if you run out of this budget? So once the budget is met, that means you have used 3 credits, then CMC initiates a throttling on each of those systems to bring down your utilization to the base capacity on each of the systems so that you don't have metered usage. So that is another way that throttling is done. There are some articles that are written specifically on how the budget works and throttling works. I'll put some of those links or the CMC articles in the presentation deck as well when I send it to Jyoti, so that you can get hold of that. The red book that has been written, that also has some details of how this budget and throttling works. So throttling gets initiated when budget is met, or when your credit balance goes below 0, or if you lose extended connectivity from HMC to CMC, right? So there is a code that is automatically getting renewed on the system. The system is part of the enterprise pools 2.0. So if the code is not renewed within that time, then automatically throttling is started, which means that if the HMC is disconnected, say for example, say more than a month or 90 days, then your throttling will get started based if the code is not renewed. So those are 3 possible use cases where your resource throttling might be initiated. You have the usage statement. So currently it is quarterly. Actually, if you look at this, this is quarterly. So you can go and say 1 credit, you can do this. You can export as a CSV, it will give you what is the separation. So like I said earlier, different resources are being tracked: core, CPU core, memory, and then AX software and IBM software. Linux we already discussed, that's in the roadmap. And in this page, you can also see what are the credit rates for this particular one, and credit history also. So you can see what is the current expenses, expense history, what is the purchase history. So when did you purchase, if you purchased more. And if you click on any of these purchase credits, then it's going to take you to the ESS, entitlement system support, from where you can purchase credits and assign it to the pool. One thing while we are on this ESS side, I want to highlight is that when you want to sign up for CMC, you have to fill a activation form, a CMC activation form, and send it out to the mail address that is mentioned in that activation form, so that your CMC instance can be deployed. You can find the CMC activation form under here. So you go to ESS, then go to the help. If you go to help, the first one you see is the CMC activation form. So you can download it from here, and there are some details that you have to fill up, your entitlement, your system, all of that, the administrator ID, the which region you want CMC to be deployed, all of that, and send it to that mail address. So once those are validated, your CMC instance will be deployed. And similar to what we saw in the settings for capacity monitoring, right? So here also it shows a pool ID, what is the pool type, enterprise, dedicated partitions. So one thing I want to note is that when you want dedicated processor partitions as part of your pool, you should enable it when creating the pool itself. So when you create, so you click on this, typically you click on this to create a pool. So you have pool ID, pool name, and then the description. So when you go to the next page and all, you have to say you want to use dedicated partition. So it is set up at the time of creating the pool itself. Then you have thresholds, different thresholds for utilization, system and partition and other thresholds. The other thresholds are basically for budget. So even though you have set a budget, right? So you have set 3 credits in this example that we saw. So if you don't want to have that throttled, but if you want to know when 75% of that is consumed, then you can set a threshold. Similarly, credits also you can set a threshold so that you don't run out of credits and you can replenish them in a timely manner. So these are the main things that I wanted to show across the different apps actually for today's demo. I think we have 4 more minutes left, so we can take some more questions if they are on the chat, Jyoti.
Thank you so much, Harry. This is really good to see it in action. In terms of questions, I think most of them have been answered. Just trying to see.
Okay, can we experience? I think the one question that is there or okay, after LPM, the question that is there is, can we experience CMC dashboard? Yeah, there is a trial, hosted trial that we have, so you can sign that up. I think Targut mentioned that in the chat, but we'll send that. I think Jyoti or me will send that either in the PPT. Yeah, we'll send that link.
Yeah, we'll send the link. Yeah, the hosted trial, certainly. So that question must have come to you privately because I don't see it.
Okay. Is there any link that we can support multiple email addresses? Today, that's not in plan, but that might be a new request. So for an enhancement to support multiple. If there is a group email address, maybe that can work. But then I think today it is only one. But we will take that as a feedback and then see how we can improve on that. Then the CMC remain free. It does. I mean, there was entitlement that was available. It was never. I wouldn't say it is a free product. There was a built-in entitlement when you bought those high-end systems. By built-in entitlement, what that means is when you buy a E980 or a E950, you get a 1-year subscription. So CMC is a subscription model, right? Because it's a software as a service. So you basically buy a subscription and then get it. So now when you buy a E980 or 950, there was a 1-year subscription that is built into that you can use, but beyond that you have to buy that additional term offerings actually.
Okay, I think that was also answered, but yes, that I don't see any other questions.
CMC using FLRT tool, yes, it connects with the FLRT tool for patch planning. That is one more questions I see. And I think Nigel had some comments on the portal. Yes, Nigel, I was using the portal that was being used for the Red Book. Yes, I did. Yeah, I did talk to Sabine before using that. Yeah. Yeah. Sabine as a command. Yeah, as a command, I think that free built-in subscription is not valid forever. Correct. It's 980 and 950. It's 12 months after that, and it starts when you buy the system, right? So it's not like you buy the system after 3 years you can do the encryption. It starts when you buy the system. So
yeah, it's when it's shipped rather than
right.
right.
The cloud edition is different. I think Target has already clarified that on the cloud edition. I think those were
the main ones. Yes, I don't see any more. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Harry, for taking us through all that material as well as the demo and answering all the questions, and extend my thanks to Turgut Genç and Sabine Jordan, who have been busy answering some questions in the chat window as well. So thank you to all of you. The only other thing that I wanted to point out is what's coming down the line next. And I said at the beginning of the session that I talked about some of the sessions that are coming. So in March and April and May, I've got some more sessions set up. So if I go to the March session, that's on the 10th of March, we've got Vesnachev delivering networking and admin best practices for Power Virtual Server. That's Power Virtual Server running in the IBM Cloud. And on 21st of April, we've got an IBM I session, everything you need to know about IBM I ARE Administration Runtime Expert. And then on the 19th of May, and I'll post the details later, but On the 19th of May, Jackie Lynch will be taking us through top tips for VIOS, top tips for successful administration. So that's all I have today. So I will thank Harry again. Harry, if you could send me the slide deck as soon as you can, and I will post the replay up. So I'm going to stop the recording there.
Right, I'll send it to you in another within an hour or so. I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. And if you have any questions,